All right, hey there guys and gals, welcome back to another video. My name is Christian Grayheck. I'm here to help you to reach any and all of your fitness goals. So let's jump right in. Today I want to talk about different styles of training, what I've done in the past, and what has worked. So, long time ago, when I first got into the whole gym scene, I followed this 14-week plan from bodybuilding.com. And what they focused on was 3 days of strength work and then 3 days of hypertrophy work. So the first 3 days of the week were more focused on lifting relatively heavy. It was more so in the 4 to 6 rep range. And then, excuse me, my dog. So it was in the 4 to 6 rep range. And then on the hypertrophy days, I'd be working more in the 8 to 12 range. So I ended up getting a good amount of strength gains from that program. And I would say that the hypertrophy gains were pretty good too. But I will say that the main reason was because I had not been in the gym before. So there's this thing called newbie gains. It's a very real thing where you have no experience in the gym. You go in, you stimulate your muscle fibers. You could be doing practically any and everything, doesn't matter, but you're probably gonna grow. It doesn't really matter how you do it, you're probably gonna grow. So I can't say that, looking back, that program, I think the first 3 days were actually the more effective days of training. And then the 3 hypertrophy days that they had, was just a bunch of kind of random moves that most people would classify as like bodybuilding type of stuff. So that's just really high reps and a lot of sets, and there's really no reason for it. There's no tracking either. So after I did that plan, I bounced around on bodybuilding.com and learned a whole bunch of stuff from the forums and what have you. And then I got onto Steve Cook, his plan, and that was called Fitness Culture, I think. And that was actually a really good plan because they mainly focused on a few main lifts, such as your squat, your deadlift, your bench press, your overhead press, and consistently trying to overload those. So you have 1 week of testing to see what your 1 rep max is, and then they would base all of your weeks of training on that. So one cycle would last about 12 weeks, give or take. And those percentages, like if I tested my 1 rep max for bench and it was 185, then all of my weights would be based on that. So that was cool because they would prescribe, okay, so you're gonna be doing 85% of your max today. You're gonna be doing 65%, whatever it was. And then the reps would match up with that so that it would make sense to hit those numbers. So I did that for a while, and I think I got the most amount of progress from then on, or during that entire time I was on that program, which lasted for about 2 years or so, but I still wasn't totally dialed in terms of the nutrition aspect, and I was really under eating, like pretty consistently under eating protein, under eating just in terms of calories and everything else. But I ended up getting so locked in, brother, in 2019, and my weight and everything started to go up, and I'd always dreamed of hitting a 225 bench press. And I finally did it, and for a lot of people that's not a huge deal, but I've always been on the smaller side and on the skinny side. So 225 bench press was everything. And I ended up getting up to 167 pounds. And I would say I was around maybe 10% body fat, and that actually looked really good on me. But then I was in a really bad car accident, lost all my progress, lost all my gains, like completely, and I just couldn't seem to get it back because I was so messed up. I had fractured ribs, torn labrum in the hip, and just a bunch of other back problems and everything that prevented me from making any more notable progress. So after a lot of physical therapy and kind of easing my way back into the gym, I eventually got to a place where I could work around these injuries that I had. And I stumbled across RP, Renaissance Periodization, and their type of training. And their whole thing was mostly progressive overload is, like that's what you're searching for or striving for, I guess you could say. And the way they define progressive overload is adding more reps, more weight, and more sets over time. And they always said that volume is king. So the more that you lift, the better. The more resources that you're able to allocate to any certain muscle group that may be lagging, for you to bring them up, you need to hit it more. Just hit it more, hit it harder, and all that. So I ended up starting their program, and they would have you do 2 to 3 sets in the beginning of the program. And you'd pick your weights and everything, but then it would tell you whether or not you're gonna jump up in weight or go down in weight, depending on how big of a pump you got or how sore you got. And that was kind of cool in the beginning. They placed a lot of emphasis on the mind-muscle connection and sensation and all of that too. But at the end of the training cycle, I would be up to 7 or 8 sets for one move. And I just got to a point where I thought there has to be, who's to say then what is the right amount of sets to do? Why wouldn't I just start at 7 sets? Why even do 7? Why not 4? Or why not 10? Why? I don't understand. So I kept doing their program, but I was just confused most of the time. Didn't make any sense. And their emphasis on the sensation and the pump and all of that stuff that made things a lot harder, because then instead of training hard, actually, I was more focused on feeling the burn and trying to make these moves work for me. And their whole thing is team full ROM, but these ranges of motion that you're having, that they have you do, go way outside of where the target tissue even operates. So for instance, they have these, the lat prayers, where you're holding onto the cable, the stack, and you're stretching as far as you possibly can, and then bringing the bar down to your hips. And now from here to here, this is lats, here to here. But above that is pecs. So they're having me stretch the crap out of this so that I could feel this stretching here, but I'm not getting any extra benefit to my lats. Why wouldn't I keep it here where the target tissue is actually able to work and actually has leverage so that those active fibers can grow? Stuff like that didn't really make sense to me in the long run. So, another thing that ended up happening was I lost a lot of strength, because you end up focusing so much on trying to find the sensation and the burn that you go to these rep ranges of 20 to 25 and you're like, oh yeah, that was good. That was really, really good. But no, it wasn't, because all I'm getting out of it is a burn and maybe a pump depending on how much salt and food I had in, but mainly just the burn. But at the end of the day, I could technically keep going. So if I'm doing upright rows, I could do those forever. And the only reason I would stop is because of the burn. But the burn doesn't mean anything. The pump doesn't mean anything. All that matters for your muscles to grow is that the active fibers need to be experiencing mechanical tension. And for your muscle fibers to experience mechanical tension, you need to be training close to failure or at failure, so that you are experiencing a slowing down of contraction velocity, meaning the bar is gonna move slower than when you started. That slowing down is where you will get the muscle growth that you're looking for. but RP didn't really have much emphasis on that at all. And those really high rep sets, I could get injured pretty easily. I just felt so exhausted all the time. So then I was like, well, what's working better? Maybe what worked for me in the past? And it was Steve Cook's fitness culture thing. That is what worked for me. And it was focusing on progressively overloading these big movements and getting stronger. And I got the best gains and I looked the best when I focused on getting stronger. So then I thought, okay, well, let's do that, but in the context of pure hypertrophy training, because I wasn't interested in doing deadlifts at that point because my back was just so messed up. I'm not going to be anywhere close to where I had been in the past. Bench press, my shoulders and my neck have been pretty messed up from the accident as well. So I'm not going to be hitting the biggest numbers on those either. And actually, there was this fool a long time ago who was like, you can incline bench press 225 pounds. Yeah, you can. And I was only doing 185 for like 2 on the incline. I was like, I don't really think so, man. And he's like, no, you definitely can do it. Let's load it up and let's see what you got. And I was like, okay, cool. So boom, I tore my pec minor. So that kind of messed up for me. So back to what I was saying, what is the best thing that I can do to kind of mesh the two together? And what that ended up becoming was just doing the hypertrophy like machines, the chest press, the machine, the hack squat, the Smith machine, and all of that stuff, but working in lower rep ranges where I used to be with fitness culture. I would work in like the 4 to 8 rep range. So I thought, okay, let's do that for all this stuff. And then let me bring these sets down from 7 to 2 to 3 max. And there I went. I saw some great gains all over again. I had long rest periods, 3 minutes, and I didn't think to myself that volume was king. I thought to myself that effective volume is king. The one where I'm slowing down my rep speed because I'm getting close to failure. That's good. And also RP has 3 RAR, 3 reps in reserve, as a starting point for their cycles. That doesn't do crap. For me, I don't know about anybody else who might have done it, but it doesn't really, I cannot gauge 3 RAR. 2 is difficult. 1, I can do that, and I think that 1 RAR and to failure is good training. That's good, especially when you're using heavier loads, because then you will, again, experience the slowing down of contraction velocity so that those active fibers can experience mechanical tension, therefore you can grow and experience hypertrophy. So that is what I have been doing as of late. My strength is going up very quickly, back to where I used to be pre-accident, and even stronger in some areas. So I'm gonna be continuing my learning of all of this stuff. I wanna be able to share it with people because I feel like there's a lot of guys like me and gals who wanna understand what makes training productive so that we can go in, get our training done, and know that we actually got closer to our goals. Because I'm telling you, when I go into the gym, like I feel pumped to go to the gym because I had pre-workout and all that stuff, but I would go in and like look at my sheet and be like, dog, 7 sets of stiff leg deadlifts? Why? Why on earth would I do that? So yeah, all that to say, I think that heavier loads are way better, works for me way more. I get injured. Like I don't get injured with heavy loads. I get injured with the high ones though, especially in the tendons, because the heavier loads contribute to tendon stiffness, meaning those are stronger than if you were to just do the high reps and the lower weight. That's not good for your tendons long term. So you might get hurt doing that. I know I did. So yeah. I guess that's it for my rant. Just train heavy. The 5 to 8 rep range is perfect. because there's only 5 effective reps per set anyway. And again, that's where you'll experience what? The involuntary slowing of contraction velocity. So yeah, just get that drilled into your head and everything will just make so much more sense. Your training will just be so much more productive. Don't worry about the pump, don't worry about the burn, don't worry about the way that it feels. Like if I'm doing bicep curls and I'm like, I'm just not feeling a burn here, dude. Like I don't think it's working. It's like, well, what's moving your arm? Oh, my bicep. Yes, brother, it is your bicep. Whether it is burning or not, your bicep is working. So don't focus on that stuff. Just if your numbers are going up, if you do have experience, if you have achieved progressive overload, which is just more reps with the same weight or more weight, then you're good. That means your training is good. Write it down, and the next week, try to beat it or try to match it. But that's how you know your training is productive. So thanks for listening to the rant. I hope that was somewhat helpful and not all over the place. None of that was scripted beforehand at all. So it's just off the cuff, you might say. So you guys enjoy your day and go and get swole or something like that. Later.